Here.
Hey,
We got MMA royalty standing next to you. We got the man, Aaron Pico. And we got the champ with us right now. Pitbull's in the building.
kicking ass, taking names.
Let's put it on the 666. There you go. Take me into the locker room with you. When you're walking into that octagon where they announce your opponent, how do you feel when you're going today?
In there and do my thing, and I think the finish will come.
Having your friends and family out there is like a whole other feeling.
I've been a part of a lot of great fights, I feel, in my career, and some I was just working when I was working for K1. We had so many great moments. I've watched so many great fights, and in Strikeforce we've had so many great fights in that company, and I think this is the one. This is the one that you kind of checks the box.
MMA Locker Room here, Pub Sports Radio, Seconds Out. Don't worry about them other shows. We're the best out. Hey, we got a lot to talk about this week, okay? We got a star-studded event coming up, headlined by Roman Dolidze taking on Imavov, We got some good entertaining fights on there. The Pub Sports Radio live stream is going to be going on again this Saturday. Hopefully, we see everybody out there. We're giving out $100. All you got to do is enter your picks in our contest. If you guys get them right and you can beat our panel, $100 gets sent out to you guys every single night. We've been doing that now for the last 6 months. But hey, man, it's only right, We got somebody back in the locker room. It's going to be their second time now back on the show. It's only right. Here at Seconds Out, we try to give you guys the fighters right before they're fighting seconds out. It's not seconds out. We got some time on this one. February 17th, UFC 298 to be exact, in Anaheim, California. But it's only right, that we got a fighter coming on. She spoke with us once in the locker room, she's been making her moves. She likes to go by the Top Gun, Fear the Maverick. I call her Miranda Maverick. Let's get her on the show.
Hi, everybody. He's sporting my little Top Gun shirt, too. I see that now. Sweet.
There we go. Yeah. So Top Gun. All right. I forget. Why did we go with Top Gun from the beginning? Tell the people the story besides everybody out there that don't know about the Fear the Maverick logo and slogan.
Yeah. So obviously my name is Miranda Maverick. It's not a made up name. It's my real last name. I always say it's my nickname from birth from my dad, right? So that's pretty great. I use the Maverick name as the spinoff for Top Gun. I do a lot of designs for them, but I was pretty concerned about using Top Gun as my actual nickname because of the whole trademarks and issues with that. But I still use it in some of my shirt designs and things like that when I know for sure I can get away with it. The Fear the Maverick thing actually came because I started as Miranda the Maverick. Because if you guys don't know, Maverick is actually a word. It means something like independent, standing alone, and things like that in the dictionary. And so I was like, oh, that's pretty cool to go with for my fight name too. And I was always too nice to my opponents. So my coaches at the time were like, listen, you need to make them fear you. You need to make them fear the Maverick. And eventually it stuck after them saying it so many times that training partners repeated it. And I was told that you can't pick your own nickname. So I got stuck with it.
There you go. I mean, hey, it sticks. It sticks, and you definitely play up to the part, coming out there with the glasses on. I think you did make a walk once to the anthem or something,
every
right?
Time. Every time except the first couple of fights. So I'll be walking out to the anthem again this time. And if you guys don't know what anthem he's talking about the Top Gun theme song. So I'll be walking out to it again this time around.
Got it. What'd you think about the sequel?
I thought it was pretty great. Just as corny as expected, but also pretty American and pretty great. And it's one of those corny shows that I can watch over and over again is the Top Gun and the sequel, Top Gun.
Got it. All right. So, I mean, we're in the last day of the month right now. You got about a little bit more than 2 weeks out right now. So talk to us a little about your fight camp and what you got going, to take on your opponent, Andrew Lilly, this UFC 298 in Anaheim.
Yeah, so this camp has actually been amazing. I don't usually have this long of camps. If you guys have kept up with my fight career, you know that I take a lot of short notice fights. Some as early as like 7-day notice. I've had 2-week notice a lot. So I'm glad to finally have a full fight camp for this one. We started at about 10 weeks out, so I'm drained. I'm ready to be done. I'm ready to get in there any day and make it happen. but this is my last couple weeks. My last hard push is this week and beginning of next, and I'm feeling it. I'm pretty fatigued today. I've already had 2 trainings today, and I was supposed to have a third, and I was like, man, my brain is so fatigued from my body being so fatigued. So I stopped, came home, and kept a little bit of brain power left so I can do these interviews without stuttering and stammering the whole time. But it's been a great camp. You can see a little baby black eye that I have, and I've had plenty of other bruises this camp. My elbows are absolutely just messed up from working in the cage and stuff so much. But this has been an awesome camp because I've improved so much. Usually I don't get the chance to learn in my camps. It's usually just conditioning, weight, we're going. And this time it was, let's work on these specific details that we're having issues with. And watching my own fights and saying, if I was my opponent, what is Miranda Maverick's weaknesses? And then us working on those weaknesses and making sure they're not there anymore. And having people like Caitlin Chukagian in for a couple weeks on my camp, and having Raquel Pennington, who won the world title, there for my camp, and tons of other people that are great names who are with really second names for this camp. And all that has been just amazing for it.
Oh, that's good to hear. I mean, so that's one thing I did want to ask about training. So some fighters, it seems like they're working on their opponent's weaknesses. You're actually trying to correct some of your weaknesses that you've seen that might be vulnerable for your opponent to take advantage of. Let me ask though, does that just stop after the gym? Or when you're at home, sometimes nothing to do, no TV to watch. Do you do some own tape study on your opponent on your own and find other ways how you can exploit your opponent?
Yeah, especially at the beginning, like when we're about to say yes to an opponent. Obviously, I'm very familiar with Andrea. We've been acquaintances for a while, and I've also trained with her before. So I've already watched all of her fights anyway. I keep an eye on a lot of flyweight fights, any of them that are close in my rankings, and make sure that I watch them and study them. Or if I'm about to fight an opponent, I go back and watch all their fights. And usually we end up having similar opponents throughout this division, right? But for Andrea, yeah, I went back. I watched every single fight of hers from pro on. And of course, people change over their fights. Just like I can say for myself, I've changed a ton over my entire career from Invicta on. It's almost laughable, right? When people go and watch some of my old fights and they're like, oh, Miranda Maverick's only got grappling and da-da-da. And then they watch my Erin Blanchfield fight and they're like, oh, she's only got striking. And I'm like, pick one. What are we doing? Like, you obviously haven't studied at all. You're just picking one fight and looking at it. And I try to look at all of them on my opponent to see where they've improved, what they've been working on, just like I think Andrea's been working on her wrestling and grappling a lot lately.
All right. So, I mean, you spoke on it. You try to see who you guys have in a common opponent. I was actually at, I think, one of her fights when she fought Macy Barber in San Antonio. You fought Macy Barber too. Different results, though, in that one. I remember watching your fight live on TV. We all thought you won the fight. We're not going to go down that rabbit hole again. Difference on Andrea Lee, though. No, same thing. When she fought Macy Barber, a lot of the community thought that she beat Macy Barber too. Did you take anything out of that fight? Oh, you thought it too?
I thought so too. And I've watched it a couple times since because I'm studying Andrea. And I'm like, yeah, I'm pretty brightly convinced that she beat Macy. Now, I will say I think mine was more of a robbery. I think mine were more dominant rounds. Hers were a little bit more questionable, but I still would have given it to Andrea for sure.
Got it. So with that, your opponent's coming in 0-3 right now, 13 fights in the UFC. Out of the 13 fights, she has just the same amount of wins as you in the UFC, and that's about 5 right now. So with that being said, what do you take on the new generation compared to like the older generation at MMA, and how do you think that they're just bridging the gap so quick, it seems like?
Yeah, well, I will say to kind of stand up for Andrea in some way or fashion, her last 3 losses have been against top 10 opponents, top 12 opponents. It's not like she's been fighting scrubs and losing. So I'll give her that. It's not like her 3 losses have just been trash opponents. She's still up there. She's one of the better ones. That's why she's in the top 15 still. She's been around a long time. I've always said that she's been ahead of me about 2 years, right? In Invicta, she was ahead of me a little bit. Then when I got high in Invicta, she got into the UFC. And then once I was starting to get into the UFC, she was already in the top 10. So I'm behind her, but I'm catching her, right? And I'm ready to make this surpassing on February 17th. So hopefully that's what happens. But as far as her other opponents and stuff, listen, there's a lot of new people up and coming in the division. We see Erin Blanchfield. We saw Manon Fiorot, who hasn't been around too long within the UFC, and we see where she's gotten at. We saw Talia Santos and what she was able to do. We see Valentina, all these up and comers. Who is it? Natalia Silva, I think, is also another big up and comer. And even Jasmine is another person up and coming in the rankings. And of course, myself. So this new people coming up. We've had MMA around for a lot longer. Even when I started back when I was 16, there were no girls in the gym. There was no MMA girls. To even find girls to fight within my region was very hard to do. And so for me to be able to see the difference now 10 years later, almost, it's crazy. Like, we have these girls in the UFC, there's a lot of competitors, and it's just filling up more and more between the divisions.
Got it. I mean, you brought this name up a couple of times, and I was going to speak about it a little bit later on, but let's go ahead. Invicta, you pretty much made your name in there, and a lot of women did in the MMA scene. But do you think that they're getting like that talent pool from there still? Because I feel like about 4 or 5 years ago, it was kind of a 45% thing to where, once you got to Invicta and you got the belt or even got close, you're in the UFC at some form. Maybe not as a highly talented free agent, but you still get in the UFC. Now it seems like it's getting shorter and shorter, it seems like, from Invicta. And other promotions like LFA, it seems like, if you have 2 or 3 good fights on there, they're a little bit more reluctant to get in the UFC. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, it seems to be just odd. We saw the Tough Show at 125, and not to talk bad about the girls that were on that, but the last Tough Show was just not great. Like, most of the girls were older, which was one downside to it. One of the youngest ones was like 28, 29, which is kind of crazy to see. And on top of that, a lot of them had either losing records or only a couple fights. So that was surprising. And I don't know where all the girls are at right now. I know plenty of teenagers that are up and coming, but maybe they don't feel like they have a good enough foothold that they're getting anywhere. I know that LFA is coming out with the whole PFL and Bellator thing. I know some fighters are looking more that direction or towards one. Invicta's there, and I think they're there to stay, and they have a great platform. I love what Shannon's done with it and had girls be able to make their place there and kind of show up and show out and be able to get to the UFC off that. And I can say for myself, that was my mindset as well, is I'm here. I'm in Invicta. I just have to keep winning, keep showing what I can do, get that belt, which didn't happen for me because of COVID, but I was about to fight for the title, and they couldn't bring the title holder up from Brazil at the time. But to me, that's like, I don't need that belt anyway. That doesn't mean near as much as getting in the UFC, especially when it comes to making a living in MMA. And I don't know, like all these girls, they're getting a lot more foreign girls. I feel like that they're bringing into the UFC, which is great to see that differentiation of everyone. But it almost seems like there's a slowdown of the new generation of fighters coming in. And maybe part of that is because the UFC already has so many people and we're slowly aging people out, but it's taking longer than it should. Like, there's a lot of people in the UFC, as we can attest, that shouldn't be in there anymore, that just keep fighting and keep getting their head knocked. And I'm like, dang, like, are you going to stop anytime, or is this just all you have in life?
Now, you kind of hit it on the head. It does seem a little bit like, more women fighters are coming from Brazil. I would say, with padded records that might be questionable, and they're just coming up every now and then. We're seeing a new one getting a shot, getting an opportunity on the Contender Series, and then next they're in the UFC, and we're like, okay, they're supposed to be good, but it makes sense. The Euro scene. Dakota Da Vinci, I think her name is, over in PFL. She's putting on a performance out there, and I think she's one to watch too. And it's like you said, an international scene on that. Nothing's coming from within it no more. Have you seen her fights before?
I've seen one of her fights before, but I haven't really studied much on her.
Got it. Yeah, I think she's probably gonna be one of those fighters. I think she has like a contract until the summer, but I know that she's been making waves and moves, and I think she's going to be trying to get in the UFC. I think that's one eye to look out for. But
okay, I know that for myself, and again, not to talk too much crap on other promotions, but I know that when I watch other promotions, I'm always surprised as to who's the top. And I see that as very stagnant stuff within their divisions. Like even some of people who are in PFL, like are people who I've beat before and are now going over there. And it's almost like they're the washouts, a lot of them. And then in Bellator, it's the same. Or you see people who are fighting for the title at Bellator. They're just the same people for the last like 8 years. You know, it seems to be crazy. So, they're just not moving. It's like there's no new blood coming into a lot of these different promotions. And that's kind of sad to see, where the UFC is obviously having new blood, having new generation of fighters come up. And I hope it just continues. I haven't seen too many young up and comers since the first wave, like Macy, Aaron. We were kind of along that same wave. And I don't really see any others that are younger than us coming up right now.
No, you hit it on point. And you know, I was talking to some other fighters, you know, during my interviews. I will say there's the wave of these fighters, though, the Natalia Silvas, the Karine Silvas, you know, right around that wave, I would say, and a few other names right there trying to make some noise. But like you said, I think Tracy Cortez, can't leave her out. But I think, you know, those are the next up and coming names besides, you know, like you said, those other names that you mentioned. And yeah, it's kind of one of those things. It's like stagnant. But enough about the stagnant. I mean, we got a lot of entertaining stuff to talk about. What do you think about the new signing of Kayla Harrison coming over?
It's exciting. You know, Kayla Harrison, I've actually trained with her before too. I shouldn't even say trained with. It was like a day, and I partnered with her for 2 sessions. She's obviously huge, you know, usually fights at 155. I think kind of like Holly Holmes said in a prior interview, I think that Kayla's a very respectable fighter. She's good about making weight in the past. Let's really hope that she makes it this time. That's my biggest concern, of course. But if she can make the weight, I don't know how drained she'll be at 35. I assume pretty drained for sure. But she's so talented. I've always thought of Kayla as this person who there's just nobody to compete against her at her weight class. And I always thought that a cyborg versus her would happen before this ever happened. But I'm excited to see her in there against Holly Holm. I think if she makes weight, she can get it done.
Okay, that's been the topic of conversation. You know, can she make weight? If she makes weight, I kind of look at it like this a little bit. Like we're talking about highly trained athletes, you know, who's always in shape. I don't think it's going to be that big of a problem as the whole world is making it, just because, you know, I think when it comes down to it, you know, all the accolades that she has already, you know, being an Olympic wrestler and everything, and the judo, the jujanka that she does, I think that she should be able to do that, because we're not talking about like a heavy set person that really needs to get their weight down. So I just kind of think a little bit attention gets brought on that, but well, I don't know. You would know it more.
I'm very counter to that outlook. I think it's much harder for a person who's already in shape to lose more weight. You know, she's got to lose muscle. Like there's no ifs, ands, or buts. Right. She has to literally not eat protein. She has to lose muscle. She walks around. It's not like she walks around at 155. This girl walks around at 185, 190. And we're saying she should cut down to 135. There's no cutting 60 pounds. That's impossible. Okay. I cut to 115, and I did that at the beginning of my pro career. And right now, I'm only 30 pounds off from it. And I'm like, no, that's impossible for me. I'm never going to do that again. Like my body just went through hell. And for her, she's having to do twice that much. Like that's pretty hard. And she is fit. She's ripped constantly. It's not like she has fat. She can just be like, all right, guys, I'm eating healthy and I'm getting down to there. She's got to lose a standard weight. Like she can't just walk around at the same weight and slowly cut down. That's not how she has to do it. She has to diet hard, probably get to where she's walking at 155. That's 40 pounds less than what she typically walks around at. Maybe 30 if she's in great shape, right? And then cut from there. So I'm very concerned about it, way more than I would be if it was somebody who was fat, so to say.
Got it. So that kind of makes sense then on this point. That's why it was harder for TJ Dillashaw to cut, because he was so ripped and it was muscle and there was nothing there to lose, right? When he did move down. Right. Okay. That does make sense. Now that I hear it like that, compared to somebody like a Jamal Hill, maybe a Mackenzie Dern or something like that, to where you have a little bit more to work with, to where you're not just ripping from the muscle.
Yep. Okay. Yep. She's going to absolutely have to rip from the muscle. No choice. It's not like she can dehydrate herself anymore. You know, like there's only so much water you can take from your body and still be able to rehydrate up the next day and perform well. So it's going to be rough, and I'm going to look out for it. I think the world is actually right on this part. I know that there's a lot of people saying it just because they see other people say it. But I think it's a very valid point to be on the lookout for. And I hope she can make it. I'm rooting for her too. But we'll see.
Got it. And have you been seeing what's going on in MMA media, and MMA news lately? The Ian Gary situation with him and his wife going back and forth with fans. Like, what's your thoughts on that? Because I know you have a significant other, and it seems like you guys stay out of each other's business and everything like that.
It's kind of just crazy to me. I don't even know why people put their private lives out on social media as much as they do. Like, everybody, I make it clear that I have a husband, but beyond that, it's like, nobody needs to know my business. And if there ever became like posting on social media back and forth, that's just craziness, right? Like, it's nobody else's business, and we should keep ours to ourselves too. Like, if I'm mad at him or whatever, cool, I'm going to make everybody else think we're great. Like nobody else's business. And, there's so much drama going on in media, but you have to have that, whether it's good, bad attention, whatever. That's how you get popular, I guess. That's how you stay relevant. We're talking about it, right?
Yep. Hey, they say, hey, any media is good media, and I guess, it's coming to fruition, for certain fighters. Sean Strickland's being real vocal about controversial topics, and it seems like even though he lost the belt, it doesn't seem like he's losing in the UFC at all.
No, not at all. I think he's getting paid. He's trying to become that kind of next Conor McGregor in a more I guess you'd call it conservative, outspoken, assholey way.
Yeah, it's been funny. So when you get the win in Anaheim, February 17th, and you get that microphone, do you plan on doing anything rambunctious, or what's your plans, or do we just gotta wait and see?
You just got to wait and see. I'd say I've got to do everything from talk to my manager and coaches about who I'm going to call out to think about what I'm going to bring up. The human trafficking has been a huge thing for me, child trafficking, and I've been kind of behind that for a long time. I've had some friends that have gotten cancer that are young kids and teenagers the last few months that I might shout out. I'm not sure. But like I said, the child trafficking and stuff is the biggest point that I want to focus on at this point in my career.
Got it. That's definitely something to speak on, and then so I think, like, we live in a day and age when some people bring up topics that other people don't want to talk about. They try to say, hey, don't talk about this or don't bring it up. If we're not going to bring this up, who is? And these are stuff that I think that should be valid and everybody should be talking about, instead of us talking about Sean Strickland or Ian Gary and his wife, right? Shouldn't we all kind of, be talking about what's important in life? So yeah. I think that's a good little statement right there.
Yeah, I appreciate it. My last two fights, actually, I have put all of my fight gear up for auction for two different like supportive things for survivors of human trafficking. One was a New Grip BJJ. So they're like an actual like jiu-jitsu promotion that houses and then teaches a program to survivors of human trafficking and stuff, which I think is really awesome, not just for their confidence and stuff, but to get them in homes where they feel safe and appreciated. And I went and taught a couple sessions to them. So that was amazing. And supported a couple other promotions as well. I'm actually supporting Alight here in Denver. It's like a legal team based around helping human trafficking survivors, a nonprofit legal team. And I was really shocked to learn how many issues there are surrounding that, right? Like all the way from custody battles of kids that they've had with their abusers and traffickers to legal battles about crimes that they've committed because they've been forced to by the people who have trafficked them. All kinds of different things that I was like, wow, I never even thought about this. And so I started kind of hopping on this local community program with Alight and been supporting them. So maybe I'll have an auction with this fight's fight clothing, anything that I wear out. So everybody keep an eye out for that too.
Got it. It seems like you're doing everything. You're doing that. You're growing. You're selling pickles. You're making masterpieces of artwork of fighters. Let me throw this out there. So we got a guy named Maurice Green, the crochet boss. He usually makes his opponents like a crochet and stuff. What do you think about maybe like drawing out your opponent and giving them the picture?
I've never really thought about doing that. It takes me so much time and I get paid for the drawings that I do usually have such a backup of people waiting for pictures. I don't know that I'd have like the desire to want to do that when I wouldn't be paid anymore. And I feel like I'm already nice to my opponents, but that's definitely a good idea. One thing I will say, if anybody out there is like a card collector, like UFC collector cards, I've been getting
We
into the
are.
break. Okay. So I've been getting into the card breaking then. You probably kept up with that. And I'm going to start doing one-of-one drawings of fighters for that, like collector card drawings. So there'll be that. Maybe Andrea can buy her own card when I draw her.
Got it, got it. That's gonna make sense. That's gonna make sense. Love to see that when that happens. All right, so we spoke on that, the pickle game. Let me ask you. I have a guy out here who makes his own pickles, but he makes them in Kool-Aid jars. Have you ever tried Kool-Aid pickles?
I have tried and I have seen them and I've thought about doing them myself. FDA approval is a little bit hard, especially when you're using someone else's brand name. So you'd have to make like your own Kool-Aid recipe, so to speak. But I've thought about doing it. Right now, I'm so busy with the flavors that I have currently that it's kind of crazy to add anymore. I keep having people are like, why not peppers? Why not this? Why not that? And I'm like, listen, I know how to do all that. It's just a matter of this is already from just like 10 flavors of pickles. And I've got to get them out there and in stores and FDA approved. And then I can start adding. But I'm actually adding barbecue pickles this week. So there's something that's a little bit rare. So trying out, actually, it'll either be tonight or tomorrow that I'll try to see which recipe came out the best and go for one.
Got it, got it. Love me some pickles. Love me some pickles. I remember the big jar of the dill pickles, and then you go to the
Yeah.
liquor store and you get the big jumbo one for 50 cents and
That's
stuff. So
awesome. I'm actually going to try to get in breweries and stuff with the juices so that they can have like pickle juice flights, like different flavors and stuff. So if anybody on here is hearing it, it's prowlerpickles.com. I ship anywhere in the US, Mexico, or Canada. And if you message me, I can ship anywhere else too. I've already got some that are out in UK. So that's pretty awesome.
nah, that's good to hear. That's great, man. Pickle game is going up. All right, so we're just gonna talk about a few last topics, then we're give you some time to shout out your sponsors and everything. You don't gotta go into detail or anything, but you got some entertaining fights going on. So how do you see the Kayla Harrison versus Holly Holm fight taking place?
If the weight is made, I think Kayla Harrison can go in there and finish it.
Okay. And what about Amanda Ribas taking on Rose Namajunas?
Then I'm going for Rose. Amanda Ribas is very well rounded. We did see not her best performance against Macy Barber last, but I think Rose is just so fast. She's still at the top of that division, and I think she's going to kind of make a comeback. And who knows, maybe even put a stamp on her career. I'm not sure. She's been talking about kids and all that kind of thing for the last couple fights. We'll see if this ends up being the one or if she's going to try to make another run at the title.
Speaking of titles, Weili versus Yan.
I'm going for Wei Li. She's just so awesome. I see her as one of the strongest fighters. I honestly think if she fought Alexa Grasso right now, she'd win. So we'll see. I think that Wei Li will take it home.
Staying in the division, Karine Silva versus Ariana Lipsky.
Karine.
All right. Yeah, I like that girl. She's pretty vicious. Aaron Blanchfield versus Monero Farrow.
Aaron, by submission.
By submission. Okay. All right. And now that's pretty much it. I mean, I just wanted to get your takes on those fighters right there and see who you thought would win. With that being said, what can the people expect that's coming out to, see you fight in California for the first time, on UFC 298?
Hey, I'm excited. I'm going to go in there and put it all together. I've already been working on that. We've seen it in my last few fights, but I plan on going in there using my grappling more than anything, but setting everything up with my striking. I don't think she's going to expect how good my striking has gotten compared to hers, and I feel like I have a lot more power than her. So I'm thinking either a TKO is my hope. I'm really hoping I get a TKO, but if not, a submission.
Got it. When you say improved on the striking, I need to just ask this: have you always been at Team Elevation, or did you just make you just made the change? Correct.
So I'm not Team Elevation at all. Never have been. Not right now either. So I'm in Denver, and I've trained with them before. Like went to their sparrings and stuff. But I actually train kind of in my own little team, I guess you'd say. So I go to Pound for Pound Muay Thai and I go to Easton Training Center in Denver. And I train under Elliot Marshall and Justin Houghton, who Elliot Marshall used to be in charge of the whole Elevation Fight team until basically I moved here. And now just myself and Drew Dober are his specific students. And then Justin Houghton trains a ton of people over at Team Elevation and has his own gym, Pound for Pound Muay Thai. So I train with them. I moved out here in, I believe it was 2021. And before that, I was out in Norfolk, Virginia area. And I was training out there because I was in grad school out there, and I trained at the House of Muay Thai and Element BJJ. And yeah, it's been a journey. Before that, I was in Missouri, and that's kind of where my home base is. That's where I got started. That's where I turned pro. And there's still a great gym out there bringing up more fighters.
All right, let me ask you on this one. What's harder, to get all those degrees that you got, or to go out there and, fight in the cage for 15 minutes?
Man, different aspects of that. For me, the harder part is going out there and putting it all on the line fighting, because I look at it as, man, 15 minutes and I can either ruin my life or make it better, So going in there is a lot harder than taking a test and sitting at a desk. Anybody can do that if they study enough.
Got it. All right. So everybody in the chat just wanted to give you some love. You got a few people popping in right now. We just wanted to give you this time to go ahead and shout out your sponsors, shout out maybe some team members you're training with, some people that don't get the attention and recognize. Right now, the floor is yours.
All right. Thank you. First, I'll give my shameless plugs of prowlerpickles.com and also fearthemaverick.net. If you guys want to support me for this camp, you got about 1 week left that I can send stuff out to you guys to get it there in time for my fight. And also thanks to all my training partners. Raquel, congrats on getting the title that you just got. And then, Rose is getting ready for a fight coming up. So that's exciting. And all my teammates that have been there for me at Pound for Pound Muay Thai and at Easton Denver, where we've been rolling, we've been striking. You guys have beat me up and given me all the bruises, and I hope that you guys are doing well as well. I have tons of sponsors, and if you guys want to check those out, go check them out in the bio in my Instagram at Fear the Maverick. I have everything from wrestling shoes to marketing places that you can check out, to water filters, which I think are one of the most amazing parts that I have. All kinds of stuff. So check it out. And thank you guys for having me on this interview.
No problem. You guys heard it here first, man. You already know who we're rocking with over here, okay? The young gun, Top Gun Maverick. She's right up here on the wall for you guys to see. We got her on the wall, okay? So you already know. Hey, UFC 298, you guys know who to go out there watch and see. 85% of the community saying she's going to win. 45 of them are saying by TKO. So, hey, there you guys go, man. Let's go ahead and see what happens. But until then, if you guys are watching this on the replay, let us know what you guys thought about the interview. Type in your comments below. We'll get back to you on it. And don't forget where you guys can sponsor, see her at if you guys are trying to get on the sponsor list. And, hey, man, if you guys want to get some good pickles and some pictures drawn of yourself, if you guys got some money, you guys know where to go with that. It's MMA Locker Room here, part of Pub Sports Radio with Miranda Maverick. See you guys same time next week. Hey, we're out.